Well, hey, I'm ready to dive into it. So, Dr. Steven
Oh,
Nguyen, you graduated with a doctorate of pharmacy in 2013, and you were carrying over $250,000 in student debt. And then you paid that off in 4 years, which is really difficult to do. And then you began house hacking single family homes in the Bay Area of all places. And then you used the equity for a large cash out refinance to purchase off market apartment complexes in Oklahoma. And then today you own 52 units of real estate, generating over $10,000 in monthly cash flow and a $6 million net worth. And you're building your portfolio and working full time. You've also started a YouTube channel to share your wealth building journey. So you're also wanting to share this knowledge not only through your YouTube channel, but through your Making Multifamily Money mentorship program. And I'm going to be linking um, the links to those programs in your YouTube channel, both in the show notes as well as the follow up newsletter after I post the episode, just so people can kind of connect with you and get more of your content. But I love the name, by the way, Making Multifamily Money. I love that one.
three
Um,
M's. Yeah.
but so kind of just wanted to dive really into it really fast. Like, how do you just manage having a day job and balancing that between the very demanding day job and then managing all your real estate? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. So obviously it's time management, right? We all have 24 hours in a day. And it's really how do we utilize those 24 hours? So, for me, my typical day, to get some context, I wake up at 6 a.m., pretty standard. Get into work around 8, leave around, 4, get home around 4:30 to 5:30. And then at that point, that's when the second job starts, right? And that's when you start managing your real estate, creating content on YouTube, and juggling multiple other things, right? And during my day job, it is a little flexible, but if I'm on a lunch break, if I have a little 15-minute break here and there, I will pop out and talk to my property managers. In addition, because I invest in Oklahoma, it's 3 hours ahead. So when I'm commuting in the morning at 6 a.m. Or 7 a.m., it's 9 to 10 o'clock Eastern time. So usually they're awake and they're up to speed. So I really leverage any minute I have, to be honest, to balance both a W-2, a long commute, managing 52 units of real estate, as well as content creation, right? So like it is possible. And I am fortunate in the sense of I don't have, other family obligations, right? I don't have kids. So, it doesn't suck my time yet. But pretty much my whole day, it's really structured. And it's part of the grind, right? It's not easy. It's hard to be disciplined, but it's totally worth it once you can, scale a nice real estate portfolio while working full time.
And I'm glad you mentioned that word discipline. So I want to talk about that a little bit more. So it is discipline. It's just little habits that you practice every single day. You're not always going to get it right, but it's important about celebrating what you do get right and then just trying to replicate that. And I hope you can agree with that. And if not, I would love to hear about it. But you mentioned pretty much squeezing every little minute out of every single day. So, and leveraging the time difference, like we're leveraging that right now. You're in California, I'm in Georgia. It's a pretty big time difference, but in different ways for both of us, we're kind of leveraging that 3 hour time difference. Um, so with that, maximizing the time difference and leveraging your time and squeezing every minute out, uh, what are some other ways that you kind of see like prioritizing your task and using your priorities to kind of guide how you leverage your time?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of tasks that can be outsourced, right? Like for me, I have a property manager who's managing my properties. So I self-manage my California real estate portfolio. So I roughly have about 5 single-family homes in California, which I self-manage. And it's been fortunate that I had the same tenants the whole time. So California, it's expensive. And relatively speaking, the homes are like $1.5 million on average. Your rents are maybe like $3,000 to $4,000. You're barely breaking even on cash flow or maybe slightly cash flow negative despite self-managing, but your tenant base is very stable, right? Unless you get stuck with the horror story where they're squatting, right? We all heard that from California, but for the most part, you're going to get a good tenant and they take care of your property. And then it's very affordable to rent in California versus to own a home, right? For
Right.
context, if for example, I'm renting my home right now, or my primary residence, I'm paying $700 a month to rent the same home. It's maybe like half that cost, right? So it's actually very affordable to rent in California versus to own a home. So Because of that, it doesn't really require that much of my time. If there's an issue, usually I will text my handyman, say, hey, can you go over, check out the property? And then I built that trust with the handyman. So it doesn't really take that much time. I literally am sending one text message, which takes like, what, 5 minutes at most. So if I'm walking somewhere or taking a break, it's easy to do and coordinate, right? And then the out-of-state real estate. So in Oklahoma, obviously, I've actually never been to Oklahoma until I bought property there. And I leveraged my property manager. So my property manager helped me do renovations on my properties, right? They helped me renovate my 20-unit apartment complex and my 26-unit apartment complex. No way could I, do it myself, right? Like I would tell my property manager at a high level what I wanted to do, and then trusted him and her, the team, to give me the results and guide me, right? So I spent most of my time picking my team around me. And once you have a strong team around you, it's easy to scale not much of your time. So that's what really helped me be successful at investing out of state, was I spent a lot of time to find a really good property manager who also serves as my general contractor. And once you have that team, it's easy to then scale your real estate portfolio. So that's really all it is. I'm leveraging other people, right? Essentially.
And it's interesting that that's how you characterize real estate investment, because a lot of people would frame it in a different light, but your day job is operations and logistics, and leveraging people's talents to execute a task. And that's kind of how you frame and characterize real estate investing. You're leveraging the talents of your property managers, of your handymen, to scale your real estate business and portfolio to the 52 units it is now. Which I haven't heard that perspective really before, but that is really how business works, especially businesses of scale. And essentially that's what real estate investing is. It's a business, it's scalable. So it's a very refreshing perspective to hear. Now, for the person who doesn't have 52 units, and it'd be kind of weird for them to hear, hey, how do you go from 52 from where'd you start rather? So you have 52 now, but kind of what you got to start it rather.
Yeah. So my began my journey, as you mentioned, I started off $250,000 of student debt, right? Graduated pharmacy school, making about, low six figures, which is about normal as a pharmacist in California. It's a higher cost of living area. But that's a pretty big hole to be down 250K, right? And basically
$7 million.
Yeah, basically $250,000 there. And I spent the first 4 years digging myself out of that hole, where I continued to live like a poor college student, to be honest. Fortunately, I was living at home still. So, obviously that saves a lot on rent, but that comes with other headache, right? When you're living at home and with your parents, they treat you like a kid still. But I took that inconvenience, took the savings and used it to pay off my student debt. And in 2017, I finally paid off my debt, right? And then at that point, I said, okay, what's next? And the next logical step is, I don't want to live at home anymore, right? It's a very natural progression. And I basically knew how to save money because I paid off 250K in 4 years. So I said, I'm going to do the same thing again for another year. And then after that, I saved money. I worked on increasing my W-2 income by going into like pharmacy management. And at that point, I saved for 10% down on a house, right? So the average price of a house back in 2017 in Bay Area, California, believe it or not, was $800,000. So I basically put 10% down, which is $80,000. And the interest rate was amazing in 2017, right? It was about 4%. And I think I basically house hacked that property. So I lived in the master bedroom. It was a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house. I didn't need the whole house for myself. So I rented out the 3 other bedrooms for about $1,000 each, right? And they were fully furnished, including utilities. And basically I posted on Facebook Marketplace and people reached out to me and I said, okay, I rented all the rooms out and I got $3,000 a month, which was enough to cover my mortgage. So I had to just pay property tax, insurance, utilities, which came out to be about $1,500 a month. And, it may sound like a lot of money, but like for California Bay Area, $1,500 a month to have a room is nothing, right? It's a drop in the bucket. And keep in mind, I'm paying myself in a way because I'm paying down my principal, which goes to me, right? But you get to deal with the inconvenience of living with tenants. So I literally repeated this process every 1.5 to 2 years. So what happened was I got a promotion to another job, and then I would leave my last house, rent it out, and then buy another house 10% down and repeat the process again, where I would house hack it. And I did that 3 or 4 times, right? From basically 2017 all the way up to 2021. So over a 4-year window. And during that window, hindsight's 2020. COVID happened, interest rates lowered, right? When interest rates lowered, what did I do to the home price? It jacked it up significantly. So I built up a lot of equity in the properties, and interest rates are lower. So I did a huge cash out refinance, right? So I basically stripped the equity from my properties. And keep in mind, when you strip out a lot of equity out of your properties, what's it going to do to your cash flow? You're going to be cash flow negative, right? But I can sustain being cash flow negative because I had a W-2 job, right?
Right.
So at that point, I pulled out all my money and said, okay, I need to buy some cash flowing real estate. So that's when I bought apartment complexes in Oklahoma, right? So to kind of summarize all that, yes, today I'm at one point I had 90 units actually. I actually owned a mobile home park in Alabama, which I sold for a loss, but then I backed down to 52 units. But it didn't start there, right? Like things compound. Like getting that first property was very difficult, right? Like it took me, what is that, like 4 or 5 years to get that first property. And then after that, it took me another 2 years to get my second property, and then another 2 years to get my third one. And then once the equity built up, I did a huge cash out refinance, and that's when I exponentially grew. And I bought a 26 unit and a 20 unit, right? So it's really compounding over time and taking consistent action, right? So I've been investing for 7 years, and most of the real estate investors who you hear are like retired or whatnot. They've been investing for 15 plus years. So that's why they're in such a strong position, because real estate takes time to marinate.
It's definitely fair, and that's definitely true. It just takes time. It's one of those investments that you just have to not let it sit, but let it grow,
Yeah.
and blossom. So you mentioned that it took 4 to 5 years to kind of get that first property. Uh, what what took so long? Rather, of course, it takes time, but what took so long? What were you doing during that time to help you get to that final point of securing the property?
Yeah, well, first was just tackling my student debt, right? The 250K of student debt was heavily crippling, and it hurts your debt to income ratio. So lenders don't like student debt for the most
They
part, right?
do
And
not love that one.
yeah, and it's a huge burden, right? That's all I knew when I graduated pharmacy school was debt was bad, right? That was instilled upon me. So that's all I knew was to pay it off. And so, for me, it was just really just be consistent, focus on increasing my W-2 income. Because, W-2, whether you're an A employee or a C employee who just barely not get fired, you get paid the same, right? You get paid
Right.
the same 8 hours, unfortunately. So
Doesn't matter.
it's not very motivating. So I took my excess energy that I had to funnel it into a side hustle where I could build wealth on the side, right? And that was just kind of my mindset. And like you said, it is scary and it's hard to save up money, right? It's hard to be disciplined. Once again, discipline is the key to success. Is if you're taking home $5,000 a month, are you able to live off $1,000 a month and save $4,000 a month, and continue to live off $1,000 a month if you're taking home $7,000 a month, $8,000 a month, $9,000 a month? Not many people are disciplined to do that, right? Most people, if they make $9,000, they'll spend $10,000, and now they're in credit card debt, right? So it's literally that simple. Just like going to the gym, if you want to lose weight and get 6 packs, you have to work out consistently every day and eat clean. It's simple. Everyone struggles with it, myself included, right? So everything really is very simple if you break it down. It's just being consistent and disciplined over a long period of time, which many people cannot do. That's really the only differentiation between someone who's successful and not successful.
Yeah, just little simple habits that we practice every day. So, what are some of those things that help you figure out those habits and then try to practice them? With books, podcasts, any mentors, anything like that?
Yeah, so actually, I had never really listened to podcasts until 2019, and I started buying reels in 2017. I know a podcast that I started off was Bigger Pockets, right? And that's a really popular one, and it's great for motivating you to get started. But once you kind of get more advanced, it's not as relevant, right? But it's good in terms of getting you some baseline knowledge. But to be honest, like for me, what helped me be successful is I'm just action oriented. Right? Like for me, I'm not afraid of the unknown. I'm more of a type where let me take one step forward, assess the situation, and then from there pivot, right? I take another step forward or take a step to the right, left. That's all it is. Like you don't know what you don't know until you do it, right? Like
Sure.
you can do all the courses, all the mentorship, all the coaching, all the training, right? I know I coach students to buy apartments now, right? And despite that, you're always going to be blindsided by something that you never expected, right? But if you are learning from people, if you are learning from podcasts, you can mitigate the amount of damage you take from that, right? Which is why I'm really big on it. So for me, when I did single family homes, I didn't really listen to any podcasts or courses. I just bought it and took action and learned along the way, which is the best teacher. But when I went into multifamily, I did join a mentorship program. And all that mentorship program did for me, to be honest, if I were to sum it up, was it just gave me the belief that someone like me could buy an apartment complex. Because I had a limiting belief that only rich people could own apartment complexes. And I didn't know that you can buy an apartment complex for $500,000. So my 26 unit I bought for $500,000. That's like the price of a condo in the Bay Area. Right. So like, I didn't know that was possible until I started looking in these other markets. And I was like, whoa. And it was really eye-opening to see other people like me working at W2 like me, buying apartment complexes. And once I saw people do that, it shattered my limiting belief. And I was able to buy 2 apartment complexes in a mobile home park in like 8 months. Right. So like literally, it was my mindset that was holding me back in a way. So, and then like with apartments, once again, you just have to know the basics, right? How do you underwrite an apartment, right? Take the gross rents, your expense is 50% for simplicity. And then whatever is left is called the net operating income for the month. You times that by 12 and you divide it by the cap rate. That's the value. Simple, right? So like people try to overcomplicate things, but if you try to oversimplify it, it makes it less intimidating. It makes you more likely to take action forward.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned limiting beliefs and also just saying like just do it at a certain point. Like Nike says, just do it. Because at a certain point, yes, you can read all the books, you can listen to all the podcasts, but ultimately, like you just got to get out there and get it done. Like I know I felt that a lot of way about starting some other ventures I've had, and running other businesses. I've been taught, I've been mentored, I've been coached, but ultimately just getting out there, and you don't learn, at least for me and a lot of people, you don't really learn as well until you get punched in the face. And then someone helps you pick up your teeth, and then you put them back in, you smile a little bit. It doesn't look as good, but then you get it fixed later, and then you go back out there, and then you get punched in the face again, but you can dodge it a little bit better. Um, and then you learn a little bit more. You keep getting punched, and then eventually you can dodge it completely because you see it coming, you understand it, and you know how to avoid it. And eventually, it's it's a non-issue. Um, and it's interesting. It's just interesting that you bring that up because at the end of the day, it's true. Like you can have all the information in the world, but at a certain point, it becomes information overload that you're too afraid to start. You're too afraid to do anything with it, and that's where a lot of people are. We have all the information at our fingertips right now, but all the data, all the metrics, all the insights, but it's crippling. So just interesting point that you bring up. Now you've brought up a lot of metrics, a lot of data, a lot of interesting points. So cash flow, that's something you've mentioned repeatedly. Walk through cash flow a little bit for me. For someone who's brand new to investing, they don't know what that means. What is cash flow?
So basically cash flow is your gross rents that you get. So let's just say your rent is $2,000 a month, and then all your expenses, let's just say it's $1,000. So what are your expenses, right? It's going to be your property tax, your insurance, your property manager, uh, insurance, HOA, utilities, any maintenance or repairs, right? So after you do all that, let's say you take or you gross rents $2,000, your expenses 1,000, your profit or cash flow is $1,000 a month, right? And I will caveat that yes, indeed, you are making $1,000 a month, but you have to save a portion of that for a rainy day later when you have to repair the roof, the water heater breaks, there's a plumbing leak, right? So it is cash flow in a way, but you have to set aside some of that for a rainy day, right? In case something happens, because when you own real estate, like I do, something breaks every month, right? And it's a new thing every month. Oh, there's one tenant, I need to evict them because he trashed the unit. And I need to repair the unit. Oh, my 20 unit had a repair plumbing leak that cost me $3,000, right? Oh, there's a hailstorm. You replace some windows, right? So like what I've kind of learned is, yes, cash flow is nice. I do cash flow $10,000 a month net right now. But in reality, I know that I save that $10,000 a month, not for my lifestyle. I save it for a rainy day because I know eventually if my roof breaks, it's going to cost me $30,000 and I just lost 3 months of cash flow. If I spent that $10,000 a month to buy a nice car, then now when my roof breaks, I have to put out of my pocket $30,000, right? So for me, the way I view my real estate and the way I view cash flow is it's a defense mechanism to allow you to sustain your real estate, right? If you can do that and not depend on your real estate at all for your living expenses, that's how true wealth was built, right? That's why I still work my W-2 despite having a $6 million net worth and making cash flow of $10,000 a month net. People ask me why. My goal is that I know this $10,000 a month cash flow is for a rainy day, and I want it to self-sustain itself so that it can save for my next down payment on my next property when it's time. So that's how you really play the game, right? And this is more geared towards those who work a high income W-2, right? I get it. If you work at like Starbucks minimum wage, by all means, your cash flow can replace your W-2, right? It's easier to step away and you can focus more on real estate. But for those who have a high income W-2, you're a working professional, you like your job, this is how you truly build wealth, right? So I know I kind of went more advanced from simple there, but pretty much that's kind of how I view cash flow. It's just whatever your net profit is. And that's what people really look at, right?
But no, you bring up a good point. That was really my next segue. It's just understanding you let your metrics guide your decisions, not just your investment decisions, but your life decisions. At the end of the day, the numbers decide or kind of help you decide how you're going to live your life right now. So yes, cash flow is important, but at the end of the day, it is not enough money right now to justify you leaving your W-2 job. Great, that makes sense. But as you mentioned, someone with a lower paying job, hey, it could be enough money for you. Only you are able to make that decision. Of course, make it wisely, make a good decision for you and your family based on your situation in your area. Keep all these things in mind. And a big determiner for a lot of people is going to be debt. Really, that's most people should really, that should be the number one thing is what does your debt situation look like? What type of debt, how much of it of each type, and just kind of go from there. But that's a good point. It is the numbers matter. Numbers matter. But no, yeah, you went from simple to advanced, but it makes sense. So I appreciate that. So kind of digging even a little bit more. So do you have any specific examples of just tracking metrics influencing your success? So not necessarily examples of, hey, this is what success looks like to me, but any examples of this metric shows me that I'm moving in the right direction.
Yeah, so I can talk about my first apartment complex that I bought. So I bought a 26-unit apartment complex in Oklahoma, and I got it off market by sending direct mail, right? So I'm really big on direct mail for off market deals. That's what I focus on my mentorship program, to be honest. So I go direct to the owner, no real estate broker involved, right? My joke is if you work with a broker, they make you broke, right? It's in their name, right? So I negotiated directly with an owner. He owned this 26-unit apartment complex for a long time. And he said, you know what, Steven, here's my income, here's my expense. And once again, I got his income. I assume his expense was 50%. And at that point, he said, okay, make me an offer, right? So what I did was I took the net operating income, divide by the market cap rate, which is an 8 cap. So in simple terms, cap rate means California is a high cost of living market. So it might be like a 3 cap, which means that per value, your cash flow is a lot less. But an 8 cap market, it's more of a cash flow market, right? So if you think about cap rates, the higher the cap rate, you have more cash flow, less appreciation. Low cap market is low cash flow, more higher appreciation. That's the way I simplify it, right? So Oklahoma, because it's an 8 cap, it's higher cash flow, less appreciation compared to California. So once I did that metric, I said, okay, I calculated my numbers and I thought this property was worth around 750K based on the numbers, right? Very easy. So now I just said, okay, let me make a lower offer than that, right? That's the easy starting point, right? Because I know if I make a offer lower than 750 and he accepts it, I will make money in this deal, right? That's my margin. So I offered, hey, I looked up the tax assessed price on, which is public information, and it said it's worth 520K. So guess what my offer was? 520K. And then if the guy got offended or angry, I already planned my response. I said, oh, this is the value based on the tax assessed record. That's why I made the offer. What would you like me to offer you? But instead, he said, oh, I'll take it. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So I got this deal. So now I just made $230,000 instant equity day one without doing anything else. I just made $230,000 of equity day one and my net worth increased by that much, right? So I bought this deal. And what was even better about this deal was the average rent that he was renting out was $350 a month. Believe it or not, $350 a month, right? That's like my HOA bill in California. And the market rents because my property manager told me, right? Because I have a very strong property manager, is $700. So double, right? In order to get that double rent, I have to renovate each unit, right? And my average renovation would be about $10,000 per unit for simplicity. So new flooring, new kitchen, new bathroom, luxury vinyl pink flooring, everything, typical modern apartment, right? $10,000 each. And if I can double my rents, I double my gross income, right? And if my expense stays the same, my net operating income doubled. So what did I do to my value? I just doubled the value of my apartment complex, right? And that's exactly what I did, right? So I bought this apartment complex for $500,000 for simplicity. I put in $250K worth of renovation. It appraised at $250K day one, right? So I already made $250K of equity, but I put in my own $250K to renovate all 26 units. I doubled my rents, right? And I didn't double the rents, and I doubled my NOI, which doubled my value. So I'm all in for $750K. Now it's worth $1.5 million. So I just forced $750K worth of equity by doubling the rents. And on top of that, this apartment complex cash flows about $8,000 a month net, right? So that's just one deal. One deal is enough to replace my W-2 almost, right? So for me, when I look at a deal, I look at how much under market value can I buy this deal so I make money day one. You make money when you buy. I'll be honest. You make money by buying right. After that, the second way to make money is having good operations. What did I do? I came in there, I renovated the units, kept my renovation costs low and very durable, and I was able to double the rents. And if I double the rents, I double the value, right? So for me, when I underwrite a deal to buy it, I look at the net operating income, how much cash flow am I making on a monthly basis, right? Cash on cash return. If I'm making $1,000 a month net, that's $12,000 a year. But if I put in, let's just say for simplicity, $24,000, my cash on cash return is 50%. That's really good. So for me, I want a 10% cash on cash return is what I aim for. But after buying multiple apartment complexes and helping students buy apartment complexes, I know I underwrote this deal to cash flow $3,000 a month, right? Which is good. But I know when I take over the property, I have 3 to 5 tenants that leave and stop paying you. So what happened to your $3,000 a month cash flow? It's gone now. If you have 3 to 5 tenants stop paying you. So that's the realistic expectation. And it happened every single time to me and my students, right? I tell them, hey, you underwrite for cash flow, but realistically, when you take over that property, people are going to take advantage of the situation, not pay their rent, or just leave because they know that new landlord's going to come in, they're going to raise their rents, and they'll just stop paying and milk it and leave before they get evicted. So they got a month of free rent. And now your cash flow is wiped, right? So like I underwrite 10% cash on cash return, but realistically, I know that when I take over the property, it's probably going to break even at best.
So that's a great success story. And you mentioned a challenge in there too. It's a small challenge and an easy one to overcome. Like, hey, you come in as a new landlord, people know that they can take advantage. They either just don't pay the rent for a month and just leave before they get evicted, or they make it difficult to make the transition. But what's one of the most difficult challenges you face in real estate, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I mean, I owned 90 units at one point, as I mentioned earlier, and I basically seen everything. Like, I'll be honest, I had a bed bug infestation in my 20-unit apartment complex that cost me $10,000 to fumigate. And guess how much rent I was collecting a month in that apartment at the time? It was only $5,000 a month. I literally lost 2 months worth of rent just by fumigating bed bugs, not caused by me. It was caused by maybe a tenant letting in a transient person stay there, right? A homeless person stay there. I've had a mobile home park where a mobile home unit burned down, right? I've had, I bought it in a D-class neighborhood in Selma, Alabama. It's a little bit rougher there. And I had incidents where there's a gas station next door. They stole my dumpster and then used that to rob the gas station next door, right? So I've literally seen a bunch of crazy things, right? And I only own 90 units at that point. That's a drop in the bucket, relatively speaking. So for me, just expect the unexpected if you're going to real estate. If you don't have a high stress tolerance, it's not for you. I'll be honest, it's not for you. You have to roll the punches, learn how to problem solve, and most importantly is have the reserves and money, right? So that's why I talk about the cash flow. That's your reserve money. But when I'm renovating units and I'm pumping money in, what was my money reserve? That was my W-2 job. So that's what people don't realize. Like some people, they quit their job too soon. Like your W-2 job is a source of income, which offsets my real estate, right? So if I have a bad month with a bunch of issues, and let's just say I have to come out of pocket $2,000, that's okay because I work at W-2. I can take that hit. It's when you have no reserve, you own too much real estate, and then issues come up, and they will come up. That's when you start to lose properties, right? Because you have to start selling your properties and cashing out because you can't sustain. So, like owning real estate, you go through everything, right? And it's not for the faint of heart. Like you wake up every day, it's a new problem every day. And it's just a matter of trying to problem solve it and getting through it and going one step at a time. But it's just a matter of getting through it.
And with getting through it, how would you say real estate investing has helped you forge your own path to success, or is helping you do that?
Yeah, it definitely. So it was funny, like as I kind of mentioned offline, when I got laid off in 2021 during COVID as a hospital pharmacist, you would think you would need a pharmacist during COVID, right? To treat patients. But I got laid off, and it was very eye-opening to me. At the time, I only owned not only, but I had about 3 to 4 rental properties. But when I got laid off, it just kind of shook my identity a little bit because I really identified as a pharmacist. But at that point when I got laid off, it shook my identity, and then I pivoted over to real estate. Right. So now I have I went heavy into real estate, heavy into the FIRE movement to try to retire early. And as I kind of went down the FIRE movement and bought a lot of real estate, I then went through hardship, right? I mentioned I sold my mobile home park for a loss. I lost $100,000 on that deal, because I had a poor property manager, right? And with mobile home parks, it's hard to fire a bad property manager and replace that property manager, right? Because not many people want to manage mobile home parks. It's a different animal, right? It takes a certain gut and stress tolerance that's even beyond me to do a mobile home park, right? But you live and learn, right? I got punched in the face. I lost $100,000. I wasted a year and a half of my life. Got some stomach ulcers probably along the way, but now I gain clarity to say, you know what, Steven, you don't need to buy mobile home parks. You own apartment complexes. Don't have shiny object syndrome, right? So sometimes when you get punched in the face, you get clarity, right? Like I was like, okay,
Sure.
I can become very rich just owning single family homes in California, period. I can be rich owning apartment complexes in Oklahoma only, period, right? Why would I want to start over when I have an unfair advantage in these two markets? It makes no sense for me to buy a mobile home park in Alabama. Different asset class, different market. Why? I could have taken that same money, bought an apartment complex in Oklahoma, economies of scale, be less stressed, and probably have more cash flow at this point if I didn't lose money, right? So, once again, the beauty of a W-2 job is when I lose money selling real estate, what does that do? That $100,000 writes off my pharmacist's income, and Uncle Sam gives me back some taxes, right? It's not ideal, but it helps cushion my loss a little bit. So yeah, that's really it. That's the beauty of having a W-2, of having a cushion. And like I said, you got to get punched in the mouth and keep on going.
And would you say that would be your best advice, is just keep the cushion as long as possible, or as long as it makes sense, really? Like, don't jump too hard, too fast.
Yeah, like the way I give this analogy is if I jump off a 30-foot cliff one time, I'm dead. But if I fall down from 1 foot 30 times, I can keep on going up, right? So where a lot of beginners, and I made this mistake in my mobile home park, is they focus on the upside. Oh, the upside's amazing. I can make $500,000. I can cash flow $10,000 a month, but they don't look at the downside, right? And as I built wealth, what I focus more on is what's my downside? I want my downside as little as possible, right? I don't want to lose money on the deal at all, ideally. So that's what I mean by buy right. If you buy right, I knew for my 26 unit apartment complex, if I bought it right, which I did, and I put in $250K worth of my money to renovate it, and I sold it for $800K, I'd break even. I didn't lose money, right? So people don't get blinded by the upside. That's where I lost my mobile home park. I was focused on the upside. That mobile home park was a 200 lot mobile home park, and it was only like 30 units there. If I filled that whole park up, I'd probably be the biggest landowner in Selma, Alabama, ironically. And it would have been worth $10 million plus. And I bought it for $1 million. That's a $9 million nest egg, right? I could leave my W-2 of that, right? And plus you're going to be cash flowing, $50,000 a month in net, the way I underwrote it. But I didn't realize the downside was, losing about 200K, and I ended up losing 100K on the deal, right? So like you have to look, what's your worst case scenario, and are you okay with that? So I asked myself, am I okay losing $200,000? The answer is yes. Like it's not going to wipe me out. I'm not going to be homeless on the streets. Worst case, I'm living back at home with my parents, fortunately. But I looked at my downside and said, you know what? It's worth taking the risk in the jump, right? So just know that any bet I made, I can afford making, right? I didn't bet my whole farm and like bet everything on one thing, right? It's really taking, minimizing your downside uh, is more important versus maximizing your upside. Like that's what I learned as I built more wealth.
I think that's some really great advice, especially the soundbite of be willing to lose, or really don't bet anything you're not willing to lose. And that's not just for real estate, but that's really any type of investing. Don't bet anything you're not willing to lose, whether that's $1,000, $2,000, or $1,000,000. Like just be okay with the loss. Um, and make sure it's your own money you're willing to lose. Because when it's a little closer to home, it puts things in a little more perspective. But one closing thought I'd love to ask people are, so you mentioned who you were reading and what you were listening to when you first got started, but what are you listening to? What are you reading now to influence you?
Yeah, as ironically, as I built up my net worth and my wealth, I started listening to a lot more mindset podcasts. The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes was a really popular one that I listened to just to learn about the success mindset and success leads clues. Because for me, really started to learn it's really about mindset up to a certain point, right? Like for me, obviously I have a lot of opportunities presented to me. People want to partner with me. People want to give me money to syndicate. People want to learn from me, right? So the richer I become, the more opportunities I was presented, but the muscle that you have to work is saying no, right? Because you have to
Right.
focus on what you do best and what you want to do versus saying yes to everything and then you can lose money. And I've lost a lot of money doing shiny object syndrome ventures, right? I bought an Amazon drop shipping store, lost $30,000. I invested in a retail pharmacy. I'm a pharmacist. I lost $30,000, right? I did a mobile home park. I lost $100,000. So for me, it's really just like podcast mindset. But I kind of slow down a little bit. I commute an hour every day. I listen to a lot of podcasts, more about mindset. And for me, I really utilize it to motivate me when I am maybe going through a harder time, maybe when I'm stressed, or maybe I just am losing motivation. So at this point, if you listen to those success podcasts, it's very similar concepts, regurgitated, being honest.
Yeah.
Same with real estate, right? Like real estate education, real estate hasn't really changed much in like decades or centuries, right? Like the core principles of buying real estate hasn't really changed, which is why I love it, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And same with success, like the core principles haven't really changed. Like if you're consistent, you keep on moving, you learn from your mistakes, you do it over a long enough period of time, you'll be successful, right? But are you disciplined enough to do it for a long period of time, right? I view the same thing of content creation. Can I post 1,000 videos straight without making a single dollar? My answer is yes. Okay, I'll do content creation, right? And that's what kept me going. So that's kind of the main podcasts I've been listening to. But what's really kind of been helping me at this stage in my net worth and my wealth building journey is actually quieting my mind. I felt like I was overstimulated, right? I was constantly maximizing every single minute that I had, as I alluded earlier, right? But sometimes you need that quiet time to really think and think big picture, how to pivot, get creative solutions to things that maybe you're stumped on, right? So for me, it's been nice to quiet the mind, to really pivot, to see how I want to pivot, right? Like, do I want to become a real estate broker? Do I want to become a real estate syndicator, right? Or do I just want to continue buying real estate on my own, organically, slowly, right? It's allowing me to reassess my situation instead of always just charging forward full speed, which I was for the past like 3 years. So I think that's what really been helping me. So to kind of sum it up, it's been a lot more like kind of spiritual mindset stuff that I've been listening to. Ed Milet and Lewis Howes are probably the two that I listen to pretty consistently. And it's just utilized to really motivate me if I'm kind of feeling down. That's really it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me again, everyone. This is Dr. Steven Nguyen, sharing his insights on real estate investing. balancing the W-2 job and real estate investing. Once again, 52 units, graduated in 2013 with $250,000 in debt, paid it off in 4 years, and now $6 million net worth, cash flowing $10,000 a month from his real estate investments. Thank you again for your time.
All right, AJ, thank you so much.